everyone, welcome to Spawn and Speak. Today I am joined by Miguel, senior gameplay designer at Relic. We will be diving into his journey, insights and lessons from the field. Today we will listen, he will talk and we all learn. So game on. Can you briefly introduce yourself to us?
So my name is Miguel Marinheiro. I've been working in the industry now for roughly, it's going to be 4 years soonish. And I passed through Relic Entertainment, which was a RTS studio. And now I am on Ripple Effects, formerly known as DICE LA, working on Battlefield 6.
Wow, so great. So how did you start your journey? When I look into LinkedIn, I see that you first place you worked on is a AAA studio, right? Or did you start it from another studio that you haven't put in on LinkedIn?
I started directly at Relic Entertainment, and this is somewhat of I guess very common path for gameplay designers in general. So obviously I was studying in university, but at the same time I was a really good player for Company of Heroes, which is one of the games of the franchises that Relic has made. And throughout my years I joined on a couple of community councils, which is basically when developers come to you and ask you for help or feedback on balance choices or design decisions before like a patch is made live. And that's how I got to know a lot of the developers at Relic. Specifically, Matt Phillips was the lead designer. And yeah, so throughout those community councils, we kind of got to network and talk more closely. And eventually, after I finished my degree, I basically almost instantly got I'm not going to see the offer, but the interviews. And yeah, like those went pretty well. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty common path because usually developers or companies really like to hire people that are very knowledgeable about the product that they're about to be onboarded on. So people that already know the product don't need to go through all the years or months of getting to know it. You can get hit the ground running. So yeah, lots of modders and top players usually make it to the companies if you go that path.
Wow, that's real something. So being a loyal player of a game that you want to work on is actually a good start.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure.
So you have over 2 years of experience crafting engaging systems and elevating them to high quality at Ripple Effect, and previously at Relic Entertainment. How did you get started in gameplay design? Like, what inspired you to take this path?
So yeah, I've always played games since I was young. They always interested me. Particularly gameplay design interested me a lot because I had been playing again the game for a whole lot of time, so I had my own opinions on how things should be done. So that's kind of what brought me to the gameplay design path, and then currently I'm more in this like in between where I'm a technical designer, and that comes from the fact that I also love programming. I studied computer science, so yeah, I'm getting like to explore both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And from your early days working on smaller systems to your current senior role, what was the toughest challenge you have encountered and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say like the biggest challenge is things that you cannot learn from just kind of making games on your own, and that comes from managing like scope across disciplines, keeping everyone in sync on what your thoughts are. Yeah, like being able to take in feedback from different people without like getting too defensive on your idea. So I'd say lots about just like managing like people in general, I guess, or how you interact with them on your day to day. That's just something that you don't get on your own, and it can be really challenging because obviously, like especially as a gameplay designer, you're kind of expected to collaborate with a lot of people. So yeah, I'd say that's been the most challenging aspect of it. I think a lot of the other things, if you already do games on your own or your code, they somewhat come more naturally.
So when it comes to game design, it's like an umbrella term. There's so many design parts like gameplay design, system design, economy design, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the correct definition of gameplay design?
Oh, that is a tough question. I'd say that gameplay design should be the people that kind of hold the vision for the game. You're the champions for the vision, and you're somewhat the person that's in the middle that should better understand the how everything kind of fits together. From like even like a narrative, a sound, how that connects to gameplay. So you're kind of the glue in the middle of everything, and you're the one that like if a lever is pulled, you should know what the impacts are on the rest of the game.
So, the game designers is in actually some smaller companies looks like can do anyone. Like developers also can do game design or participate, or the other people in the company can do game design. There's such a idea that works around in the industry. What do you think about that? In small companies I work with, I always encountered the idea that okay, game design, I can do that. I also have ideas, I also have vision, I can do whatever game designers do. Did you ever encounter such ideas, or what do you think about those?
I didn't encounter them too much directly at both companies. I feel like because there's many industry vets in them, but I've definitely heard a lot about that. And just having an idea doesn't make you a gameplay designer, or any of the sort of the designers. What kind of makes you a gameplay designer is seeing that idea through, and once you get to defining the rules and behaviors for the system, that's the difficult part. It's not the idea part that's difficult, and how they fit together with the rest of the game. If it's worth pursuing, what it adds to the game, all of that is the difficult job of the gameplay designer, not the idea itself. But I'd also say that designers can sometimes get defensive on when ideas are thrown to them from other team members, like engineers or whatever their role it is. And I also don't think that's good. I think you should be open to the ideas, but usually kind of drill down on why the person is throwing that idea. Like if they feel like something is lacking, that is very actionable. So it's not like I don't think you should be like, I'm the gameplay designer and like I'm the only one making decisions on the game. Yeah, it shouldn't be like that as well.
Yeah, in the end, it's a team job. You work with the team, and everyone can see a different perspective. But when it comes to the final decision, I guess it should be a collaboration of the ideas. And even by the game designers, I guess. Game design should be open-minded, and the other parties should agree in the end what the idea has come around.
Yes. Yeah. Because again, like as a gameplay designer, you're going to have a better idea as well of if those ideas fit, and you know the scope, you know what's scheduled. So at the end of the day, it's on you to kind of make that decision. If you should like take the idea in or not, or pursue it. But I'd say that that's why it's also difficult, and what I spoke about earlier of the soft skills of working in a team and making sure that everyone feels heard as well, and not shut people down.
Yeah, I agree on that. So switching between companies like Relic and Ripple Effect must expose you a variety of workflows. Can you describe a moment where adapting to a new studio environment was especially difficult?
Um, Honestly, I'd say that uh, the first transition just from, not having worked to a studio to now having worked to a studio is probably the biggest one, because when you're jumping between studios, I'm not going to say that it's super smooth, but you already know many of the things that the companies will be using, because a lot of like the software, a lot of the processes are similar. Um, so yeah, I'd say like your first jump is going to be the hardest one, but between companies, I honestly haven't felt that much difficulty in challenges in getting to know like their like unique parts of it, I guess. There is of course like just differences that can be difficult depending on what your goals are. So, for example, at Relic, I had a lot of authority on many decisions, and that usually happens with smaller to medium-sized studios. But in bigger studios like DICE or EA as a company in general, the projects are a lot more people, a lot bigger. So, for example, something I felt was maybe that I had less of a voice in the project because you're like one person in like 1,000 people versus like one person in 50 or 200. Um, but I don't see that as like a difficulty in transition, because it's trade-offs. Like I also like I'm happy to have a lesser role, if sometimes can mean I can like focus more on my in the individual task. Um, so different pros and cons. So I don't take it more as a challenge of jumping the company, but I can speak about the first jump a lot though. That difficulty between like you're a hobbyist dev, I guess, doing things on your own in Unity or Unreal, and that like that first jump, it's a lot to learn, because first you'll be learning about documentation, so tools like Confluence that lots of these companies use. You'll be learning how to use that to keep everyone on track on whatever you're building. Um, Tools like version control, like Perforce, so you need like no companies is good for the most part. How like how to operate within like the hierarchy of the company, like who should be like your manager, who are you reporting to, like if you need to grab a resource, who should you contact, um, and also there's from a technical standpoint, um, most of the companies that produce the other big games, they don't use Unity or Unreal. Many companies use their own proprietary engine, and that was the case with both Relic and now Dice. So there's no Unreal, there's no Unity. Um, However, I'd say that one has been probably like among all the ones I've mentioned the easiest one, because if you know Unity, if you know Unreal Engine, there's lots of things that cross over.
So since they are both big studios, we can we say they are kind of have a similar workflow, so it is easy to adapt.
Um, they they're more similar than being in like hobbyist dev, but they still have like a lot of differences. It's just that those differences are kind of easy to get used to. So if you need like a feature greenlit, it's a lot easier at Relic to just book, I don't know, 2, 3 meetings maybe and get it approved. If you're in a big company and a huge project, that needs like a lot more people, like more red tape is how I describe it.
I think so. It's I want to learn now to approve an idea that you have created. How much time it takes? Like 2 or 3 meetings seemed a lot to me, but you are working in a big studio, so what's the procedure?
Yeah, the bigger the studio, the more time it can take. Um, at Relic, it also depends on the part of the project you're on. If you're like in pre-production, production, or post-launch. But for the most part, at Relic, you needed maybe like you had the idea, you wrote it down, you then like brought it up to whatever your superior lead of the team was. And then eventually, you would kind of reach out to other design disciplines if your idea had implications on them to kind of get their buy-in. And then finally, you maybe have like a final meeting with maybe producers or that sort of thing. And then maybe you'd have like the kickoff meeting where you describe, like you put everyone in the same room and kind of describe what the feature is and get everyone like on the same page. Well, on a bigger company like EA, not only like in between the meetings it takes more time because it kind of needs to go up the chain and the chain is a lot bigger. But there's a lot more like buy-in that needs to be done. Especially like if the project, like if the game itself is a lot bigger, there could be like a lot more implications on how that plays with the other systems of the game. So there needs to be like a lot more back and forth between your idea and actual like the execution of it. So I'd say then like just have like double the meetings or double the time frame. Yeah.
So how does it make you feel? Like, is it like a battleground that you need to fight for your idea, or is it feeling more productive? And do you think there can be any other way to do it more productive?
It's kind of difficult to get that flexibility that you get at the smaller team size. Honestly, in bigger projects, I don't think it's a solved problem in the industry, and that's kind of like also the problem when you have huge games. It's hard because the bigger the project and the bigger the team, the more chances are that your feature, whatever you're planning to do, has more implications on the other disciplines. And also, like the bigger the project, the more busy those other disciplines are going to be as well. So it's hard to argue to get them their time. So I'd say that for now, what I've encountered to be the best process is still the one. I kind of use that Relic, and that's how I feel like a gameplay designer should approach the thing, where you have your idea, you kind of go back and forth within your discipline with your peers and your lead on the idea, and then eventually you reach out to other disciplines to kind of shape your idea as well, because someone on the VFX side or on the sound side can say, this is not doable on our end because of X and Y, and then you need to go back to your idea and adapt it or your feature. And I think that's the best way. That's the most collaborative way. A lot of the times, and this can happen really easily, actually happen in production as well, in Company of Heroes. You'll have the teams being siloed, and what that means is that teams are on their own corner and they get their tasks and they just go through the tasks, versus a more like this collaborative approach where before the task ends up on them, they can speak out of concerns that they have against it. And that is a real problem that you need to be aware of whenever you're working in these more collaborative projects. Is not siloing the different teams. They should have let's say be a stakeholder in your feature.
Yeah, I get it. So another question popped up to my mind. As a gameplay designer, in those meetings, how much sacrifice do you think you should do in your designs? When those meetings are up, usually it ends up with some sacrifices made by the gameplay designers or any game designers, because you need to put it on the work with other teams. So what is the line? What do you think about it?
It depends on the feature. So there are usually in games you somewhat organize features by a priority list, and depending on the project size and scope allowance, you might have 3 features that you consider gold features, and maybe 5 features that are silver, and then even more that are bronze. And depending on their priority, that's usually just how much both how much quality goes into the feature and work, but also usually on the gameplay design side, more what's the word I'm looking for? More compromises can be done. But that's not like a golden rule to it, because there's more things that fall into it. And that's part of the difficulty and also the niceness about being a gameplay designer, is that it's on you to kind of decide if this is a hill you want to die on. So what I mentioned could be a guiding light for that decision of this feature is really important to me, and I feel like it's really important for the game, and I'm not going I have the vision for it, and I don't think we should budge on it, because budging on it means that the vision of the game gets diluted. Or you should be able to argue. That's also one of the great qualities of a good designer. You should be able to argue on why it should stay that way for your feature. But yeah, at the end of the day, it kind of it all comes down to if you think that the compromise is going to be too much, or if it's acceptable. When you are in those meetings. I think from experience, most of the time there's a compromise that keeps both parties happy. And that's also the trademark of a good designer. Sometimes is
that's kind of the hard part of our job, I guess.
Yeah.
So
something you get better with time.
Yeah. Actually, this is absolutely goes along with the experience you are getting in the industry and games. What is a time when a feedback, whether from playtests or peers, required you to pivot a significant part of a level or a system? How did you handle it? We can come back to that question if you want to think about it.
Yeah, let's maybe go back to the question after. I need a little bit more think about it, a little bit more time.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
A good example.
Yeah, sure. So looking back, is there a moment or project where everything clicked? The visuals, the mechanics, the narrative, and you thought, this is why I do this my job. What is that moment for you?
I think when I was designing some of the they're called battle groups. They're basically these tech trees that this again was for Company of Heroes on RTS. They have access to these tech trees that you kind of opt in before the game. And in this case, it was the DLC with the heavy tanks again. So it was World War II, and usually you'll have the process of you bring in the ideas together. You have a brainstorm with your peers, and everything seems fine on paper. But when you actually play it, a lot of things go on fire.
Yeah.
And that's all. I'm not going to say always, but many times that's going to be the case, especially as the game is complex. But yeah, so that happened obviously this time around as well. Many abilities that are either felt underwhelming, or not hitting the mark on how much power they should have. And it's also an interesting process because on the gameplay design side, you're interested in if it flows well. Does it feel good for the player when depending on the time of the match they're playing on, if they always feel like they have an option. And I remember feeling like that maybe 3 iterations in. It's okay, now I feel like there's a good flow to it where the I'm going to call it battle group, so just keep in mind that it's tech free for the game. Where the battle group flows well. You have you don't have too much downtime between decisions. The decisions are interesting, the players when choosing between A and B, they have a really interesting choice there. And then everything usually the most satisfying part is when you get to the end, and usually the sound people and the VFX people are not doing their work until you have things in stone. Obviously, you don't have wasted work. So many times you have to imagine how it's going to be with the VFX and the sounds and everything else. But then, like at the end, when basically you get to do that part, that's honestly like one of the most satisfying parts. Is getting that last like bit of polish. Seeing like your abilities, your whatever like you were gameplaying, testing before, like coming to life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was for like the heavy tank DLC that Company of Heroes 3 had, which unfortunately I left before like it actually got properly launched to the players, but
Did you play
I was still behind the scenes. Yeah.
I'm almost, not almost, I'm completely agree with that. It's also the most perfect part for me too. So, what triple effect projects are you most proud of? And what part did you contribute that stands out?
Okay. So right now I've only been on Company of Heroes 3 and now on Battlefield 6. So that's my only two like AAA projects, or depends if you consider Company of Heroes a AAA or AA. But
isn't it AAA? I don't know. I thought it was AAA.
I'd consider it AA just because the definitions change a lot these days.
Yeah.
Because AAA has gotten like so ahead of the pack in terms of like amount of money poured in that
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say like most satisfying part that I've contributed to that I think be proud of was so in Company of Heroes there were like lots of systemic issues that weren't directly like balance related. So that was like abilities being completely broken, or the pathfinding. What were the other ones, like destruction of the game? So yeah, like Company of Heroes has a lot of different systems. And I kind of took upon myself to make them better. So pathfinding at launch for Company of Heroes 3 was, I'd say, pretty bad for a player experience, and it took me like a year of going back and forth with engineers on that issue to get it to like an appropriate state. And then there were like issues with we also had the airplanes. So the airplanes were like their own system as well, and they look really goofy at launch. So that was also like I think a really interesting problem to tackle, both on the design side and on the technical side, which you kind of always do when it's like a small to medium sized studio. And that one is because you both have gameplay decisions to make, but also like we had problems with how we were handling like the abilities behind the scenes. So like we didn't have a unified system, so each airplane ability was its own thing, and that means that doing improvements or bug fixing in any of them means that now you need to go like through 200 abilities and do the same fix. So there's also like interesting technical challenges there of like how do I create like this unified system that can incorporate the different like niche things that every airplane ability has. That was also really interesting to tackle, and the end result is always satisfying. And it's something that players will instantly notice, especially on the pathfinding.
Yeah. So the mechanics you talk about, like the planes, tanks, and etc., all those are like physics based, right? Are they, or depends on real numbers?
It's a mix, and the physics are there more for presentation. So as with most of these games, what dictates things is a simulation, and the simulation, by that I mean it's not like physics related. So for example, in Company of Heroes, the tanks, like the simulation works on like a 2D thing, 2D grid. So it doesn't care about like if you're going up or down the hill, I guess. And then you have like the presentation layer on top of that, and that's where the physics come in. The physics are there to like make that traversal look realistic, but technically technically, like if the tank gets hit by, and if you haven't tuned it correctly, like let's say that you gets hit by a really high velocity shell, and you're like a little jeep. The physics might like make the jeep like look really crazy in terms of like rolling over, but because like the simulation underneath is always telling it to you're at this position, that doesn't make it just fly over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
So
sense.
it's a mix between the two, but physics doesn't have any gameplay hooks. Like it doesn't directly affect gameplay. It's all presentation.
Yeah, that's a great point actually. So, when it comes to numbers, do you need to research? Like, I'm going to design a tank gameplay, so I should research how tanks behave and etc. Do you do those research?
Yeah, it highly depends on whatever you're designing, obviously. But and also the vision for the game. So because Company of Heroes was a game and Battlefield as well, they kind of both share the same gameplay pillar of believability or authenticity. That was the how we call that pillar. Um, so because of that, you kind of want the weapons, the tanks, everything to kind of feel believable, and that means researching how they sounded like their fire rate, everything that you can think of, and that that kind of is a little bit of your job as well. Whenever you're designing these features, kind of doing a little bit of the research and bringing that to like sound designers or VFX designers, being like, this is how I want it to sound like. Obviously, they're free to kind of do their own research as well, but you should be the one that kind of envisions it. Either way, I'm getting sidetracked,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's totally something that you do. But I'd say that they can be your guiding light, but depending on the type of game, they shouldn't be the end all. So for Company of Heroes, we knew more or less like how fast a weapon fired, if they were long range or short range, the general accuracy and all of that. But sometimes you need to kind of bend the rules for gameplay reasons. Specifically, like that's really important in RTS games where you need like a specific weapon or unit to fill a role. And sometimes you have to bend rules a little bit, or
Yeah.
sometimes like that thing that happens in real life would be actually really toxic gameplay wise.
Yeah.
And you need to tone it down.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, which games did you work on since today?
I mean, big releases has only been Company of Heroes 3 and Battlefield 6. Then I had my obviously like own little hobby games that I do on the side, but I haven't released any of them on Steam. So yeah, I don't think I got to help in any of the other projects like directly. I just got to participate in feedback. So yeah, only those two are my two projects.
So, may I ask which one is your baby? Is it a favorite child of yours?
Oh, definitely Company of Heroes. I mean, that's the game I have been playing since like 2008 or something.
Yeah. So, is there any passion project that haven't made it to release?
Oh man.
Or do you want to talk
I'm not
about it?
sure. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about it.
If you don't, you can skip it.
But I'd say that there was like some Company of Heroes adjacent projects that I wish I'd gone further, and Dawn of War as well.
So, have you ever worked with any smaller teams or like any friends group that we want to make a game on our own beside our jobs? Is there any verse?
I've done it a couple of times, but it never went too far. Mostly because the people were also people working in the industry with not too much time, so it always dies off.
Yeah.
And it's honestly something like once you get into the industry, it's hard to get the motivation or time to do it because you're already like 8 hours a day. Either already working on gameplay design and things, so your brain's kind of tired of that, or if you're like more of a technical / engineer role, you're already sick of looking at code all day.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do it after after hours.
Yeah. Is it the only setback, or were there any other blocks that you have faced?
You mean on the side projects?
Yeah, separate.
Not really. I think that's honestly the main one. It's not wanting to look at code or whatever else after hours, and also not having the energy to do it.
Yeah. It's usually the huge part, I guess.
That's the big part, honestly. I mean, specifically at EA, there's also the part that you need to sign agreements saying that you won't release anything commercially while working at EA.
Yeah.
The case after all.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's contracts.
Yeah. So, do you have a vision or a wish in the future that you want to make your own game with your own team?
Definitely. Although, like, my dream is, funnily enough, still doing like a company of heroes 4. But this time with, on a higher leadership role rather than more of a, ground-on designer, I guess.
So, right now you're a senior gameplay designer, but you wish to be a lead or like a manager?
So I'd say like game director. Is something I want to strive for, but that's something that takes years and years of time in the industry and buy-in. So as you gain more years or you're longer in the studio, you have more trust from other people.
Yeah, that's right. So, for someone entering the industry today, what skill or mindset help you stand out early in your career, besides like playing that game a lot?
So there's a difference between playing the game a lot and showing knowledge about the game. So I'd say like being able to show like a deep understanding for the game, not only like on a gameplay design, but technical level. So using company viewers as an example, like many people dive into like our modding tools and get to know like the underlying systems a lot better and how the numbers play together. So it's not only about like being a really big fan of the game and playing the game a lot and being good at it. It's also understanding the game.
Yeah. Actually, it's my English. It's problem about my English. I want to ask that. Of course, playing hours and hours doesn't make you a game designer. Of course not. So it's more like a mindset, knowledge, and those comes along with. I might ask the question wrongly, but I didn't mean that.
No. I just wanted to explain that a little bit better. I didn't interpret it that way. But then there's also the part you said, more like general tips if you're not like a big player of the game. I'd say that it's usually a lot better to focus on creating very small pieces of functionality or ideas and getting them to like the quality level than it is to trying to do like a full game with maybe like a bunch of asset store assets and using like a bunch of like so basically not having a real identity to it. Like you creating like a mechanic that is crouching or jumping, like that's something that's very basic or people have seen like 1,000 times, right? If you're a gameplay designer, because this kind of depends on the role. If you're a gameplay designer and you want to enter that way, you should either go through the route of knowing the game really well and kind of showing that off to game devs in whatever way you can, or B, create like little either really easy. It kind of depends on the gameplay design role, but if you want to, for example, be a balance designer, creating a very simple game that you can tweak the numbers, or modding a pre-existing game that allows for like you tweaking their like balance numbers, such as was the case with Company of Heroes, where you can tell a unit that instead of 10 damage it can be 15. If you want like a more like generalized gameplay designer, being able to create like interesting mechanics or systems is a lot more interesting for the recruiter, I think, than creating like a subpar like whole game that takes like a lot of work. I'd say like being able to tune in on just a specific mechanic or system and being able to bring it to quality and doing that over and over again, having like your portfolio with like really interesting mechanics or systems, I think is really really nice. From a technical design standpoint, being able to, I think like from a back-end perspective, design like complex systems can be good. That you can show off like that you know how to code, and you can like ally that to maybe like an interesting idea. That's also really valuable. And if you're like, for example, a narrative designer, being able to just grab, I think it's game maker toolkit, I guess, and there's a few others that
Yes,
you don't need to. Yeah, you don't need to know how to code or anything like that, or you need to know how to code very little. I think there's also like a few Python libraries, and you can just focus on the narrative side of it. That's the best you can do. And if you're like an artist, there's kind of like the similar advice of, instead of like building 100 assets that are a little bit quick or shoddy, or you kind of just went through trying to churn out as many assets as possible so that you can appeal to many like different like areas or genres. Like that's also really not good. I recommend like fewer assets but high quality, so that you can really show off your work and talk about it on interviews. So I'd say that's my general advice. Again, for gameplay in general, get really in tune with changing numbers. If a game has a modding tool, that's a really good way to get into like the industry, and being able to kickstart your ideas a lot better than having to like be worried about how to code well.
Yeah. Actually, I heard that modding actually does work for big companies to enter in big companies. As for Crytek, I worked in Crytek as a QA tester, and I heard a lot that people come here start with modding those games or any other game that they have played. And is there a thing in your company that you can enter as a QA tester and prove yourself with your ideas and work about the path you want to take in that company to rise to a gameplay designer or an engineer, etc.?
So you're saying like a different path that doesn't start as gameplay?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask that in Crytek we were like we can enter that company as a QA testers, and then we can talk with the, for example, game designers and prove our ideas with their looks and publish them in their CryWiki to get their attention. So we can, in time, we can become a game designer in Crytek from QA tester. So is there a thing in ripple effect or the Relic company?
Yeah, I'd say that it's very dependent on the company itself. I think both at Relic and at EA, there's certainly paths for that where you can jump from QA to some other role. Although I'd say that if your expectation is to get into a QA role to eventually get to like gameplay design, I think there's like a little bit of a misconception on like the likelihood of that happening is, or how frequent that is. And again, it kind of depends on the company you're going at, but yes, it's possible, for sure. But I'd say I'm not going to say you're better off, but I'm going to say that there's I think better chances for you to show off that in the other ways I mentioned, because I think like sometimes like gameplay designers kind of depends on who you are talking with, but sometimes like people can get annoyed if like all the other roles are trying to like jump in, I guess, and trying to like book time when like the project is ongoing to try to get their foot in the door, which obviously like every gameplay designer understands that you want to make that jump, but there's also the part of like I need to do my job as
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd say it's a possibility, and but it's highly dependent on the company itself and the culture.
Yeah, I see that. So, what advice would you give to junior designers aiming to reach their senior level in gameplay design?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What advice would you give to a junior gameplay designer who aiming to reach the senior level?
Yeah, so I'd expect between like a junior and a senior gameplay designer, the difference to be like if I can give you a feature and you can kind of bring it to its completion. So if I can trust you with authority over like a non-trivial piece of the game, and you can handle that, that's one of the difference makers. Also being able to, again, how you communicate with different people, how you take feedback in. Also, as a senior designer, you'd be expected to be able to mentorship people as well. Yeah, being able to onboard people. Also, a little bit more of leadership, I guess. Being able to have like people under you and being able to make them work nicely together as a group. Lots of these things is like I think the difference maker. Obviously there are like other skills that only kind of through time you get, which again comes back to like even before the feature starts, like you have an idea of how much scope it is and how it fits with the game. Like the quality of the ideas, I guess, get a lot better with time, and you can kind of tell like a junior gameplay designer from a senior one just from from the get go how they face the problem, how they design around it. But yeah, I feel like because again, like it's really ambiguous on like what makes a good gameplay designer, but I'd say like the things I mentioned are actually like quantitative things you can look after of like what this designer was trusted with this feature. Did he do well? Is he able to take more bigger features of the game and systems? Is he mentoring other people? How is he like interacting with them? Does this person feel like they're more of a leader kind of thing?
Yeah, I see. So, do you mentor others informally, or how has mentoring shaped your own approach to design?
Yeah, so I have both. Well, not at EA still, but at Relic I did. And I both mentored and got mentored.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of on you to be able to kind of convey the culture of like the project itself. Yeah, and I also try like even outside of work to like I haven't written in a while, but do blogs and share knowledge around whenever I can. And that's why like this was also interesting. But yeah, like mentoring is something that I really take into account even at EA on how I approach people, and even if it's not your discipline, if it's someone from some other discipline, but they don't know their bearings on the game, mentoring them and giving them like meetings to kind of explain the vision and everything else around it is something that you should be able to do, and I think it's like really nice for the project. Keep everyone bought into the idea and also on the same page. Yeah, like most companies will usually offer you some kind of mentorship program, and what that means is that you'll have allocated time to do it, so you're not expected to like after hours you're doing it. And I think like if anyone has the chance to either like be a mentee or a mentor, they should. And yeah, you'll basically depending on the company, if it's like a reasonable size, they'll probably have those avenues, and I think you should take them. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's something that you wanted like specific from the question that I can answer to.
Sorry, can you repeat the last parts? I missed it.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure if there's something else from the question that you specifically want me to dig into.
Yeah, actually, that was all I wanted to learn, I can say. I wonder if you have juniors in your team. Those big companies tend to employ juniors.
I'd say so. Unfortunately, less so at Relic, partially because, like, between rehiring someone that had already previously worked at the company and knows their way around the proprietary engine is a lot more efficient, but not unfeasible. But at bigger companies like EA, I think that's a lot more reoccurring, I guess, and even internships. I think I've seen EA offer a lot. But yeah, in terms of junior designers, specifically right now on my team at Battlefield, there's none.
Okay.
But we did have those at Relic, because we had VFS, which is like a game design school here in Vancouver, and we did take, I think, a reasonable amount of people from there at some point. But yeah, usually like my mentorship was with not sure if they were from VFS, but yeah, it was a junior designer at Relic. Yeah, at EA, I haven't gotten to the point where, because of project timelines, of wanting to do mentorship still.
Yeah, it is really busy, I guess.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying it's like, it's funny. It's always like, it depends on what type of project and what point of the project you're in for many of these things.
Yeah. Do you ever feel burned out, or do a crunch culture is a part of your like experience in those companies?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yes and yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's different types of burnout. So at Relic, because I was working on what was almost a passion project, again, it was a game that I grew up with, I knew in and out. You can get burnout because it's really easy to work overtime when you're in a passion project, right? And also you're mentally a lot more into it than you otherwise would. Like a decision, you can be overthinking a decision a lot more if you're into the project a lot.
Yes.
And it's something you don't really notice. I just remember that, and this was like 3 years in, I guess. I felt like my days were really unproductive. It got to the point where doing something that should take like 5 minutes took just like an hour or 30 minutes. So you don't really notice it coming in. It's really gradual, but yeah, it's something that you need to be really aware of and communicate with your producer or manager that you're going through it. And at Relic, they were really nice about it, and even offered to, like, me working less, like being able to leave work earlier. So, and I'd say that's honestly a mistake that I almost feel like many junior designers are going to do, because you don't know yet what is too much, and
Yes.
You don't have a bearing for it. And also, chances are, if you're like applying to the industry, you're really excited to get your first job and wanting to prove yourself. And I think that's the other thing. Like, you always want to prove yourself. And that means you working a lot of hours and getting like a lot into the game. And it's honestly not worth it. I think people really underrate just how much productivity, I guess, you gain if you just like instead stop and take like and think about the game outside of hours. It's better on yourself and it's better on your project / productivity on both ends. Yes. And funnily enough, on at EA, that's kind of like honestly one of the pros and cons, obviously, like of a bigger project as Battlefield, is that you're more of a cog in a big machine than you are otherwise at smaller, medium-sized studios. So you feel less bad about taking time off because there's usually like someone that can cover for you, where sometimes that's not the case on smaller studios.
Yes.
And you also usually are less invested into the project itself. So those two things, which can sound like negatives, can very much be positives.
Yeah.
Like at EA, I have a better work-life balance than I had at Relic.
Yeah, I see. It's actually a really valuable experience here. And I actually had another question, but I forgot about it right now. So, okay, do you want to come back to the question that we were thinking about?
What was the question again?
It was what Ripple project are you most proud of, and what part did you contribute that stands out?
I think I answered that one. Wait, it was about like I think taking feedback. I think from players or teammates and having changed the system, right? The one that I skipped.
Yeah. It was we were I guess thinking about the project and your contribution that stands out.
Okay, so in terms of what I'm proud of, I think that one I answered with the VLC. But as for the question, I think the question that you asked was like having changed the system and being proud of like how that I guess shaped out. That is a tough one because I think there were like many instances of it. But I think a really difficult space in RTS specifically is that the more games you're in, the more hardcore your audience is, and that means that much of the feedback is like top players are really like invested fans into it, and you have to kind of balance this hardcore audience feedback with players that never played the game before. So I think like, and this is like going counter to your question, but I think it's as important. A lot of the feedback that like top players gave was on removing certain RNG elements, and by RNG I mean like luck factors in the game, and also removing what we call call-ins. And just for a bit of context, call-ins. So in RTS games, you tech up, you build new buildings, you invest into it, and those new buildings give you stronger units. And call-ins were part of the battle groups I mentioned earlier, and they were basically you could call in just a tank without having the building. That's why they were called call-ins. And this was really hated by top players or like the hardcore fans in general because it felt for them as a get out of jail free card. Of like, I denied my opponent the resources, I played really well, and they were still able to bring this unit because of their battle group choice. Whereas I feel like they shouldn't be able to because I played really well and I denied their resources. And in this case, I think like the reason why I'm proud of is that I think it's really easy, especially if you come from a background of being a top player or hardcore player of the game as myself, to being able to, I guess, pull yourself away from what they're saying and what the rest of the audience of the game also wants. And in that case, I think like we achieved a good happy medium of taking like I guess clamping is the word, the values of how much luck factor there can be, and also like on this call-in problem, being able to pull the right balance levers to still keep the design intent while not blindly following the feedback. And the reason why I said it kind of goes counterintuitive to our question is again because our action on the feedback wasn't like reshaping to what they wanted. It was being able to keep the vision together that we originally wanted, with pulling some levers to kind of make it more appropriate for that audience, right?
Yes.
And I think that's something that it's hard to master, but it's really nice when you can balance both worlds. And I feel like I could do like a whole talk on itself on like this. Should you do the game for your hardcore audience, or balance with top players in mind versus like the casual audience? But yeah, I'd say I'm really proud on how myself and my team took that feedback and being able to hold the vision together for the game. Because again, like funnily enough, like just talking about this case in specific, the original vision that we had was that no matter how bad of a game you're having, you can still have a nice moment in the game where you can bring out like your nice tank. And that's something that the better you become at the game, the less you're kind of aware of. Because the better you become at the game, the more you want your skill to take over. You want, like, if I'm the better player, I want to win the game 100% of the time. And that means, removing any, like, luck factor, removing anything that you might feel like it's unfair. And removing those rough edges of the game sometimes can make the game start to feel like soulless. Yeah, so I'm proud of it, not because, I guess, of how the system was reshaped, but how, like, I guess, the balance levers themselves were reshaped to keep, like, the same vision.
Yeah, actually, that is quite a valuable point, I guess, to make here, because sometimes as a game designers, we can think, like, how should we shape, like, according to who it is going to be made. So it's a really important point to touch, I guess. Thank you for sharing.
And that's another, like, at the beginning we talked about skills of a gameplay designer. That's another thing that you really need to get good at. It's understanding who you're designing for.
Yes.
Yeah, and not letting like yourself being able to be more critical of any feedback, whichever like audience it comes from.
Yeah, actually, you can't satisfy everyone in your audience, and it will never happen. So you need to also choose between them to design.
There's a phrase, and I might be misquoting, but if you design for everyone, you also don't design for anyone in specific. So your game will miss the mark.
Yeah, that's a really great quote. Actually, I'm gonna write it down. So, if you had to pick a respawn point, a core principle or habit you revisit every time you start a new project, what that would be?
I'd say like having your design pillars well made is a big point, and this goes for both like your own project / indie project and big projects. Having a really well defined guiding light at the beginning, it doesn't need to be set in stone right away, because obviously you still want to have space to iterate and kind of understand what you want, but you still need to at some point kind of lock into something. And it's important to lock in for many, many reasons, but one of them is scope creep. And that's kind of the killer for many like smaller projects and even bigger projects.
Yeah.
But you should be able to have good enough pillars that when a feature is pitched up against it, you should be able to say if it's worth it or not. And if the game pillars are not well designed, and if you don't have like a proper vision of what you want the game to be, it's easy to be like, oh, this is a cool idea, I'll implement it. Oh, this is a cool idea, I'll implement it. And then you have like something that now you have like a bunch of scope because like you couldn't understand where most of your time should be spent. And you have a game that also doesn't make much sense because there's like different features and systems pushing in different directions. So yeah, honestly, that's the biggest part, and it's important for any project. Being able, again, like it's a very good skill to have, to be able to look at an idea, understand it's cool, but saying this doesn't fit my game.
Yeah, I see your point exactly. So we really pointed out really important and valuable points. I really thank you and appreciate every single part of it. And I can't think any other questions. I forget some of them. Sadly, I should write it down, I guess. But thank you for your contribution. It was really wonderful talk for me.
And don't be afraid to reach out. I'm always happy to share that, and even spend an hour talking about some random topic like the audiences or some other like design problem.
Do you have anything to share? Like, do you have any ideas to share, or like those are the important points, etc.? You can share anything you want. Your ideas, your vision, anything you want to say to juniors or the like CEOs. It doesn't matter.
For juniors, specifically, I spoke about like wanting to prove themselves. I'd say like be really careful about that when you're training in. Obviously, you're going to be excited, but I'd say that no one is expecting like a junior to act as a senior, and no one is expecting you to put crazy hours in. And I know that you're like excited when you first join in, but let me tell you that it's not worth it to like spend 2 years grinding and then burn yourself out. So that's a really, I think, important point. But also to like expand your knowledge. Like always look for ways to expand your knowledge. So I have this bad habit of buying books that I know I'll only read maybe 2 years, from now. But read as many game design books as you can. Read as many blog posts that you can find on game design topics. Watch GDC talks. And also, importantly enough, get some, launch up a game, and if it's a good game, analyze why it did well. If it's a bad game, analyze why it went bad. And specifically, like the bad games, I think are the ones that will give you a lot of insight. Yeah. But try and actually like dig into the systems that made the game. And specifically, if you're looking to get into a company that does RTS games or looking into a company that does FPS games, try and do your research around that. Show that, if I'm coming into an interview and I have like, a bunch of blog posts or like I have a bunch of research done on what makes like gameplay feel good, that sort of thing, you're going to be ahead of the pack there. And I think like whoever game designer is interviewing you is going to be a lot more interested in you. So tailor your research and whatever you're doing for game design as well for the field you want to get into. Yeah, so whatever avenue you can do to make your game design better, that's good. Obviously, making your own mechanics and games on your own, that's the other part that's also big. But it's kind of the same when you're learning like computer science or programming in general of it's better to have a 50-50 between like practical experience of like creating your own game with theory. And if all you have is like practical experience of bumping your head against a wall, that's going maybe to take you longer than it should to kind of get some concepts than if you like do that good 50-50 split. And it's the same in programming of, if you don't research, you might be spending a lot of time doing things in a really inefficient way in code, a really ugly way.
Yeah.
It's the same with gameplay design. It's the exact same.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you think that as game designers we are in the middle of the communication between teams? So should we know every of the programming, the 3D, the audio, UI? Do we should learn how those work according to talk about our ideas?
I think if you're a senior designer or like someone with a lot of years of experience, I'd expect you to know, have a soft understanding of those other disciplines. As a junior designer, I'd expect you to probably have a really low knowledge of that, but maybe some knowledge of some areas. So, for example, because of my CS background, I was the type of designer that knew design, but also knew how to bridge that gap with engineers. So that's why I landed into this kind of role between gameplay design and technical design.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like maybe someone on the narrative side of things, maybe to help like some of the sound aspect of bringing your vision to life, that sort of thing. But I don't think it's expected of someone junior to like have a good understanding of it. I think like as you interact with the people in those pods, you learn with them and they learn with you, right?
Yeah.
And as obviously, I think like a very very well-rounded designer that has years of experience will almost naturally have that grasp of a soft understanding, sometimes even hard understanding of some specific discipline, like either that be audio, narrative, VFX, engineering, um, localization, like QA, all these different disciplines are a good have, and I think psychology is another one, right?
Yeah.
And there's also even people that come from the movie industry, like cinema, like directors. All these pieces that you can use, even yeah, even if you're an artist that became a gameplay designer, now you can speak more of their language to kind of I want this feature to look like this.
Yes.
That's all very important knowledge to have, and you'll be a much more valuable gameplay designer. I think the more areas you can speak to, but more specifically, you can speak really well to them. And again, the bigger the company, the bigger you'll have allowance to specialize in the sense that I'm a gameplay designer and I have hard knowledge on the engineering side of things, or I'm a gameplay designer and I write on my free time. I can really speak the narrative to my game, the narrative designers. So yeah, I think many of the things will come naturally as you work with different people, but you should look either way to be able to speak the different tones so that you can interact better with different disciplines.
Yeah. I actually want to ask you one of my point of views to get your ideas about it. Since you talk about psychology, I always come to think that game design in general, as an umbrella term, needs to get to know people well and kind of know the psychology behind it. Like why we like this mechanic, why we like this gameplay. What's the psychology behind that make people love those? So I'm actually really into that, and I'm trying to combine the human psychology with the designs that I make. I'm really into that. So what do you think about it?
I think it's a really valuable skill set to have. And yeah, the research on it that has been done is, I'd say, still lacking, just because it's I think the games industry as a whole is always kind of lacking behind the other ones because it's a more recent industry. But I'd also say it can be used for the best and for the worst, and I think you want to be on the camp that it's for the best. Obviously, you have casino games, you have the loot boxes, and that's all. I think bad examples of using human nature against your own interest.
Yeah.
And I rather prefer when that psychology is applied to how can I make this mechanic feel good to use or sticky, right? And I found this really it's not psychology, it's UX, but a recommendation, the Gamer's Brain book. And I think what were the other ones? There's a few others. I think Flow is the other one. So yeah, the more you can ally if you have psychology knowledge to gameplay mechanics, the better.
Yeah.
And there's so many to them, and I think a really fascinating case of that is Civilization, the game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've heard the phrase of one more turn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I find that really funny and fascinating because it's playing off this want of not letting something unfinished. So they really weave in you have something in progress, and you start something, and then by the time you finish, there's something that's in progress. The other one is now in progress, and now you also want to finish it.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things that if you have that psychology knowledge, you can like bring into game design. And I think like the interesting challenge there is going to find how can that be applied to game design, because many like I think psychology concepts cannot be like applied one to one. But obviously some other can. Yeah, so if you have that psychology background, honestly, like that is a really good skill set to have as a gameplay designer. Yeah, so I definitely say to read up on some of the books around psychology on game design, and try to understand a little bit better how your skill set, like in what ways it can be used in the different mechanics. I think it will really like help you get some ideas going.
Yeah, it's actually really great to hear it from you too, because I'm really trying to improve myself in that field. In Turkey, Ertuğrul Süngü is making like a series of game design books with his colleagues and like the master degree persons that he founds. There is really a good search about the psychology behind the gameplays like Zelda, Magic Circle, and what is the difference between game and play, etc. And this is actually really a thing that can improve a game designer, I guess.
Yeah, like again, the more knowledge you can get from any source is always going to be beneficial. So I'm always up for that. I didn't hear I don't know about that series in specific, but yeah, like there's like many good resources out there, including the GDC talks that are always gold.
Yeah, actually. So yes, as for me, I think it is all that I want to talk about. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I mean, if you get me started on a topic, I won't shut up about it. But there's like many like specific RTS related problems that I could speak hours on. But I think I'm going to leave it there for now. But I'm happy to come in at a later date and talk about any like specific game design problems that I think would be really interesting to talk about for a long period of time.
Actually, that would be perfect, because Spawn on Speak is something that I just began, and it is like learn and communicate with those people who are experienced and have another like point of view, and talk about on those kind of questions and get to know them. And I actually started this. It's like I want to learn and I want to talk, but then I think like why not everyone see this? So I'm just, because I am recording this, I wanted to share. It's like not income for me or anything like that. I'm not going to even like advertise it. I'm just gonna put it on YouTube and make it like if anyone wants to learn from it, come and get it. It's free for free information. So I would love to make another talk with you in those topics like RTS and etc. I'm really grateful that you attend and make this wonderful talk with me.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I think it's also really nice that you're taking the time to organize this so people have more resources out there.
Thank you so much. So this is another chapter of Spanish Speak. Thank you for coming and listening and talking. Everyone out there, game on.
Game on.